Sir, I hate to report this, but it appears that the stocks are falling again.
I know.
Oh, sir, you sound so calm. You do realize what this means, right? His nose, it's...
I completely understand.
Then what would you have us do, sir? You know what needs to happen, don't you?
Of course I know. Listen to me, young man. What I want you to do is you turn around, you go right back to that little computer of yours, and you buy more stocks.
Sir, I'm sorry. You may have been right one time, but this is madness. I can't endorse this anymore, sir.
Do I look like I care about what you endorse?
Sir,
you go back to that computer and you purchase more stock! Thank you to our $5 patrons, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gem Lord Sean, and Demix LND. Another thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. Another thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and Idemokami. And another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. Before we hop into this breakdown / review of chapter 228 of Jujutsu Kaisen, please don't forget to leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Please leave a like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and even more. You can also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month. All you need to do is hit that little join button. And with that, you get the same perks as a patron and even more. Alongside that, some of those perks happen to include the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, let's hop into last week's poll. So, last week I ended up asking you guys, Jujutsu Kaisen fans, Sukuna is now in a strange spot with the strongest sorcerer. So I gotta know, do you think it's finally time we see the true power of the 10 Shadows technique up against the Limitless? Or do you think Sukuna has another way out of this situation? Pick a choice and let me know why down below. And out of 921 votes, with a rather girthy lead of 63%, you all believe that the mighty King of Curses had a different path that he could walk down. He did not need to, in fact, call for darkness, as 37% of you believed. And I guess you guys were half right. I feel like both sides were kind of half right. Because to be fair, he did get out of the sticky situation in his own non-10 Shadows way. But seemingly enough, I'm not sure because the end of this chapter is super duper vague, but seemingly enough, he did in fact pull out the shadows of 10. And by 10, he pulled out 1, a very important shadow, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. But thank you guys so much for participating in that poll. Make sure you get your input in on tomorrow's poll dropping at 12 p.m. to make sure your input is included for next week's review. Now, let's hop into chapter 228. What's up, guys? That guy with the pencil here, and here we are to do a review and breakdown of chapter 228 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as the decisive battle of the uninhabited demon-infested Shinku. I was doing so good. Shinjuku, number 6. And the Gojo Glazer in me is a little bit stressed, but as always, I'm gonna keep having faith. I'm locked in too deep now. If you were to look at my portfolio, it is like all Gojo stocks. I am probably 90% of the reason the stock price is what it's at right now because I bought so many Gojo stocks. So I'm gonna stay locked in. However, I'll give the Sukuna fans this. The Sukuna sloppers, from a Gojo Glazer myself, it is looking pretty rough for Mr. Satoru. But you never know. for he is the strongest. But enough talking in vague niceties. Let us hop right into the chapter itself. So we open up and we do get to see that everyone has noticed that Gojo and Sukuna are in a black orb. And we see that everyone realizes, oh, it's a really, really, really small barrier. Okay. And they realize, oh, well, in theory, it could serve to strengthen the barrier. And I did mention that at the end of the last review. I did think the main reason Gojo went giga to small was to just super duper juper reinforce the barrier. Because think about it. If you use, let's say, 5 pounds of steel to hold something, let's just say you do that. Make 5 pounds of steel, make a ball. Now, you could use that 5 pounds of steel to make like a 10-foot ball. I'm not sure if that's even possible. Not sure how the math works out on that one, but let's say that. The steel would be spread a whole lot thinner. Sure, it's still steel, it's still pretty strong, but it's not as durable or as thick as it could be. But the same thing would apply to barriers and cursed energy. Give to barriers the same amount of cursed energy, and the one that has the larger barrier is naturally going to be more breakable simply because of how it's going to work, regards to the cursed energy being spread thinner in comparison to a smaller domain where the cursed energy is spread not as thin, and thusly there's going to be more bulk in comparison to what would be there normally. So it does make sense. This one does line up. I'm not about to freaking geek out like a certain sword teacher is. I do think this makes sense. Sure, is it crazy that Gojo went from a giga domain to a miniature one? Yeah. Is it crazy the fact that he's able to change properties of domains on the fly like that? Yeah, but still, it does seem logistical in terms of how things like this would work. And we do get to see Kusakabe literally get called out for being like, bro, alright, we get it. Everything's impossible. Bro, you say this every week. Find something new. Get some new dialogue, bro. You're like the same NPC we be talking to in every single video game that gives the same basic instruction that you've done 1,000 times, and we're just hoping you can get something else to say. And we see Maki being like, okay, since we're talking about new dialogue, why? A barrier's outward appearance and how big it is on the inside almost match never. Like, literally ever. Like, they never stay the same. And that's where me and everyone else, upon it also, I think it was stated somewhere. Someone referenced the chapter it was stated. But that's why domains constituting a separate space, that's where that comes from. That's where you get, like, mountain to island level JJK outside of the recent Gojo feat, which realistically only scales to him and Sukuna. So, like, with that being the case, how does Malevolent Shrine not do its thing instantaneously here? Because here's the thing, right? Maybe you can argue it is, you just can't see it. Because the weird thing is, right, Malevolent Shrine was working regardless on whether or not Gojo's domain was set up. The range ignored the separate spatial coordinates. And that's what I thought it was. Like, oh, okay. So Malevolent Shrine, as long as it exists, it doesn't necessarily care about any other curse energy-based space alterations. It'll just live, breathe, and exist in the current coordinates and just vibe. But seemingly enough, I don't know, the barrier at the start of the chapter, and seemingly for a hot second, they're able to have a whole conversation before it finally kicks in. Like, what is Malevolent Shrine doing? Did it just turn itself off? Like, I don't know why it's not doing anything to the barrier immediately. Like, I get why it's not doing anything to the ground, because the ground's already been cleaved. Or, well, the ground's already been dismantled. I get that. But, like, why does the ball stay, like, untouched for so long? That feels weird. It feels like it's breaking the rules, but hey. Common sense won't prevail in the battle of the strongest, and I'm not trying to sound like Kusakabe, so I'll let it rock. However, speaking of letting it rock, we see that Kusakabe explains, that's why when you're trapped in a domain, unless you somehow find the edge, you don't even have the option to escape. And even if you can reach the edge, a normal domain is resistant to attacks from the inside. Still, there are limits, Musclehead. Don't blame. And with that being the case, Kusakabe does explain, like, the separate space thing, but that still seems so, like, this feels like, I don't think Gege knows what he's doing on this one. Like, this one feels weird. Like, how do you have an entire separate space, yet there's still an edge to it? I get there being an edge on the outside, like, during the Dagon fight. I get how Megami was able to find them and use his own domain expansion to pierce into Dagon's domain. I get that one. Why? Because, like, there's an actual edge in the real world that you can see, because it exists. But, like, when let's just take the one that Kusakabe or Gege indirectly uses as an example here. Why in Horizon of the Captivating Skanda could Maki be thrown into the forest? Wouldn't she just crash against the edge of the barrier? Or is the edge really random on where it goes? Was that specific point where Megami appeared from, was that just the edge of the barrier? Like if Megami took 2 steps back, he would like bump into a wall? Like I don't know. Like when does the domain go from, okay, this is an actual real physical tangible environment that people can do things in, and then turn into like a Microsoft wallpaper? Like I don't know the difference, and I don't think Gege knows either. This one feels a little bit weird. And with the whole separate space thing being established, it makes me wonder why Malevolent Triangle doing this thing immediately. But once again, maybe it's just Gege trying to give us I'm assuming it's cinematic timing. If I had to take a guess, it's most likely just cinematic timing, so Gege can get us all riled up, get our jimmies all rustled. However, with that being the case, we do get to see that Maki blames Gojo for not understanding the concepts of domains that well, which is very, very true. And to be fair, she was never going to open one. And we see that the main thing that's useful for a domain is, in fact, a concrete image. What that domain would be like once you're inside it. And due to that, Kusakabe is so caught off guard because if a barrier was to be envisioned so small, so tiny, so minute, like maybe just bigger than a basketball or around the same size, then it'd be not impossible, especially if you are a regular human being, aka not the size of a basketball. Heavens forbid you're trying to open up a basketball-sized domain with another person in it. You'd be crushed by your own defensive wall. But what Shoso points out is that, well, Gojo kind of understands that mass-breaking rule because he sat in the prison realm for over a month. He's kind of used to the idea of, okay, I bet. And like he figured out how to conceptualize that. Very, very impressive. Once again, this is an amazing ability. Like imagine your room, like just wherever you stay. Now imagine it compressed down to the size of like, I guess just, it's apt, a basketball. Now imagine fitting everything in your room inside of a basketball. Everything inside your room with another human being in there too, for good measure. Just throw another human being in there and think about how you would need to like rescale everything, reconceptualize something as like I always have a pencil on me, shock horror, that guy with one. But with that being the case, me always having a pencil on me, it means that I need to reconceptualize the size of that pencil alone if I'm trying to make my whole room fit into a basketball. I need to reconceptualize that, understand what the new size of it would be, and then do that for every single object that exists within my entire room in order to shrink my room down to scale to the point, I guess, where it would fit inside a basketball. That is crazy. But Sukuna managed to get caught by it when Gojo did it because Gojo has experience with that certain issue of mass energy conservation, which is neat. It's a good way to make the best out of a bad situation, I guess. Like the fact that he's able to use that experience in the prison realm to reconstruct his own domain, very, very impressive. And we do get to see Kusakabe still doesn't really understand how Gojo's able to not only just change the domain conditions every single time he uses it, but even change the domain actively as he's expanding it or using it or compressing it. Like, remember, the third Infinite Void was supposed to be or at least it seemed like a regular one, then it went to a super large one, then it compressed down to a super small one. Those are 3 different types of domains right there, and it's all off the same activation. So it's catching Kusakabe off guard. And he explains the main reason this is weird is because in order to create domains, you usually need to set up a strict level of rules. You need to figure out your parameters for your domain and pretty much make that the activation every single time. That's the normal way to do it. The only reason Akari and Higuruma, the handsome fellas they are caught off guard is because their domains and their techniques are pretty much the same thing. Like, the main reason Akari doesn't use the balls in the door too much outside of his domain is because they're worthless and they don't really do anything except feed into his technique. And same thing with Higuruma. Does he even have? Like, outside of the little magical hammer that may summon Judgman, I don't think he has any sort of techniques outside of his domain. So the reason that they're able to do weird, wonky things either make them super good at tug of war or establish things like nonviolence, it's because of how deeply intertwined their technique and domain are. Unlike other domain users, where the domain, while being the peak of Jujutsu, is realistically just an accessory. It's something that you pull out at the last minute. It's a last resort, but for Hikari and Higuruma, it's their first resort, because it's literally their entire technique. And with that being the case, we do get to see that the norm is that you need to do some fancy stuff to switch it up. You can't just quick change on some master control type beat. You can't just quick change the properties of your domain like that. And with that being the case, we see that Kusakabe is wondering, well, if it's so difficult, why do it? Like, why? Oh, maybe it was too difficult to maintain a huge barrier and they had to compress it down to that size. And we see that Meme is like, well, in that case, maybe he just wanted to see if he could cover the effective range of Malevolent Shrine with a large enough barrier. Which is initially what I thought he was trying to do. Because essentially, if you believe that the upper limit of Malevolent Shrine is 200 meters, okay, just make the barrier big enough that Gojo is fine. Because if the domain can't reach outside, or heck, even reach the inside limits of the barrier with Malevolent Shrine, since he can't pick up and move Malevolent Shrine, and Malevolent Shrine is the center, as long as the barrier is big enough, then boom, you don't even have to worry about the shrine breaking apart. And then Sukuna essentially has no choice but to figure out how to deal with the Limitless. And not even just deal with the Limitless as Gojo still is able to use the Limitless directly, because the domain sure hit effect would be covering the entire 200 meter range, and thus the sure hit effect of Malevolent Shrine would be canceled out, and thusly Sukuna has to deal with purples, reds, blues, and the neutral Limitless itself. So that did seem like a better strat, though it appears that Gojo went with the opposite idea of just making the domain extra durable. And we see that despite the domain being extra durable, the slashes have started back up again and start to literally eviscerate the domain. Like, piece by piece, it just keeps tearing and tearing and tearing and tearing it apart. And we see that Ino and everyone else is like, wait, what's going on here? And you realize is that, oh, Sukuna decreased his domain's range so he can increase the output of his cursed technique. So once again, he's still, I think it's like his 4th or 5th alteration to his Malevolent Shrine, so he can tear through it and get out of this little box of his. And we see that Angel believes that, well, if they reach oh, no. He can't read, can he? If the barrier breaks, they'll reach a stalemate, won't they? And we see that Kusakabe is like, hey, I'll be real with you, dog. I kind of sold on my Gojo stocks a while ago. If Gojo neutralizes and goes back to a stalemate, they go back to neutral, and he's going to lose. He's ran out of options. And we see that the barrier does in fact shatter. And unfortunately, the ball didn't shake 3 times. Gojo didn't get a critical capture on this King of Curses. Nah, he just got the regular. He should have thrown the Master Ball, bro. He should have thrown the Master Ball. I don't know why he threw an Ultra Ball. He should have thrown a Quick Ball at the start of the battle, something like that. But unfortunately, he threw the Ultra Ball. And Sukuna has broken free. However, something seems a little bit strange, if you will. You see the domain in the background, you see Sukuna posted up, and you see Gojo posted up, but as Gojo's looking at Sukuna with those big old eyes of his, we get to see that there's a certain something going on. And as Itadori yells, "Sensei!" we see everyone else shocked, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark from Kusakabe and Hana, and we see that Kashimo, bro, just teleport. Okay. Call me a madman. Call me insane. Kashimo, are you against John? Well, maybe, because the thing is, right, I thought Kashimo had morals. Like, I thought Kashimo really did. I really thought Kashimo had morals, so I thought he would want to fight the strongest at their strongest. But clearly he doesn't care about that. So Kashimo, just jump Sukuna. Like, why not? Like, even if, like, I'm not sure what Kashimo's endgame is. Like, does he want to end Sukuna's life? Does he just want to have a good fight? Like, I'm not sure what Kashimo's prerogative is. But considering I'm pretty sure his binding vow is set up so he can only use his technique against Sukuna, Kashimo, get a little bit active, bro. Like, just get in there instead of asking, what happened? Oh no, is it time for me to get active? Did Gojo lose? Like, bro, just go get active, bro. Just move. I'm sorry. I feel like I've been clowning on Kashimo more. I need to make a Kashimo respect video because I love Kashimo. Kashimo's fantastic. But like, oh, I honestly, I wish, this is going to sound bad, I wish Kashimo was getting the Takaba treatment. Like, we have not seen Takaba since, I think, the Gojo release chapter, or 222. It's either 221 or 222 is the last time we've actually seen Takaba. So, I still assume, right now, Takaba's running the ones with Kenjaku. I have to take that guess, because Kenjaku would have to execute Takaba. The big thing is, right, there are certain people that Kenjaku needs to run up on. Yuji, I was about to say, I mean, technically, you could say that, but Yuji, Hakari, and does Maki count? Well, no, Maki doesn't count, but Yuji, Hakari, and Yuta are three people he has to come get rid of. Well, actually, I don't think Yuji's in the Culling Games anymore, right? Because he wasn't registered under Yuji, he was registered under Sukuna. But Sukuna's Sukuna. So, like, I don't know. I'm not sure if Yuji's actually in the Culling Games. So he may be like a non-requisite. But at least for those three, he has to come get them. And he also has to come get Kashimo. But Kashimo's going to go throw himself up against the wall that is Sukuna. So that's fine. But I'm intrigued. I'm a little bit intrigued to wonder where Takaba is right now. Because why wouldn't he be with them? If Panda's here, if that filthy, nasty, disgusting, false creature's here, where's Takaba? The strongest in the verse. Like, I don't know. He has to be running the one with Kenjaku. Because Kenjaku's gonna have to execute Takaba. Which I'm presuming, like, as much as I'm gassing Takaba up as strongest in the verse, unless he has, like, Ryoki Tenkai, Comedian's World. Like, unless he has a barrierless domain of his own, all Kenny does is open domain, Takaba's technique gets shut off, and boom. Now, that's it. Like, there's realistically an easy way for Kenny to get rid of Takaba, but for the memes, I'm going to assume that Takaba's running the one with Kenjaku and currently winning, because we haven't heard from Kenjaku since the battle started in 223, I'm pretty sure. So, with that being the case, we do get to see that the reason everyone is freaking and geeking is that the shrine is falling apart. You see Sukuna, Chad as ever, posted up in the rubble being like, yeah, oh yeah, this hurts, oh, this hurts a lot. And he has a massive, juicy, gaping hole in his chest. Now, that, my friends, is what we call a bit buku bonkers. Because, once again, if I had to voice one complaint about this chapter, is that we didn't get to see, in my opinion, what would have been more interesting. I want to know what happened inside that miniature domain. What did he hit him with? Because notably, Sukuna, I mean, he's been taking damage from Gojo's regular attacks. At least the ones that, like, have curse energy behind. Like, he took damage from Red to the face. But, like, was this another Red? Like, how did he hit? Like, he didn't pierce Sukuna straight through, right? And I don't think, unless he started throwing out miniature purple, but even then, I think a purple would just straight up tear through Sukuna. Unless, like, he literally felt the miniature purple tearing into him and then he dodged. But, like, what did Gojo hit him with? Why is Sukuna looking like this? All that, like, we could have seen that if we actually got to see what happened inside the domain. It doesn't, I'm not going to say it feels to the same level as the triple domain clash that we were promised in the Yuta Sendai fight, but never got. But it does feel a little bit similar, where it's like, oh, I was ready to see some hype go down inside the domain. But no, we just get to see the outside of it. We get to see a black ball. That is the least interesting thing you could have shown us this chapter. Yeah. I'm sorry. I do not care about the way the black ball looks on the outside. I want to see mini Gojo and Sukuna fighting. But we don't get to see that. However, we do get to see that Sukuna has taken an extreme, and I mean an extreme amount of damage. However, with that being the case, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just every single time I see this knockoff Pikachu with his arms posted up, bare feet with the whole... Well, actually, his feet aren't bare. I don't think his feet are bare. But still, posted up like he really better do something with this big old frown on his face. Kashimo, bruh. Like, like, I went from intrigued to mad to now I'm just disappointed. Like, I'm legit just disappointed. I'm hoping. Like, here's the thing. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to put some stocks in Kashimo. Multiple of my friends have said, hurry up, before the sale ends, before the stocks start to rise, buy some Kashimo stocks. I'm going to buy some Kashimo stocks. Just give me a second. I got a couple videos I want to make based off this chapter alone. But give me a little second. I'm going to invest in some Kashimo stocks. But, like, I don't know, bro. He's just been in the same pose, slopping the same man, doing the same thing for these past couple. And I don't know, bro. It just doesn't feel right. Like, it just doesn't feel right. Like, the fact that I'm seeing a top 10 but I guess we have a couple top 10 characters in the verse here, right? Like, we got Maki here, we got Yuta here, we got admittedly Base Akari. I don't think Base Akari is top 10, but like, you know, you could definitely say that like Jackpot Akari's top 10. Like, we got some monsters here, don't get me wrong, and they're all sitting around in Glazing too, but I don't know. Like, I kind of expect it from Kinji Akari. He's a gambling man. Of course he's gonna love this high stakes pitched fever battle. Yeah, of course he's gonna be acting like this. Yuta Okotsu, he became a sorcerer a year ago. He didn't know what sorcery was a year ago. He's new to this mess. Of course he's gonna be sweating and worried and just in absolute agony. I feel so bad for that, but he's gonna have gray hairs. If he lives at the end of all this, he's gonna have gray hairs by the time it's over. I understand why he's stressing. Yuji Itadori, once again, super duper new to sorcery. Obviously he's gonna be stressed out. But like, Kashimo, you are more than a full grown man, dog. Like, don't let his appearance fool you. This man's like 80, right? Like, I'm not sure how old he was in the flashback we saw in his fight, but like, he was a full grown man, bearded, like he looked like a grandpa. Like straight up, he had lived an entire full life. He's standing around with a bunch of kids. Like, all right, is anyone here except for Meimei, Kusakabe, and I think Akari may be 18. Hold on, let me double check. I don't know, the wiki didn't say he is, but I do believe Ino's also 18. Like, there are a couple adults here, and obviously Angel's also reincarnated, but they're also in a child. But with that being the case, I'm just sitting here wondering, like, bro, you're a full-grown adult, dog. Stop standing around with your arms crossed, bro. At least sit down or something. Like, do something new. Like, I'd be getting tired. If I was gay, I would legit get tired of drawing him in this pose. It's the same folding arm stance that we've seen him in. It's like he lost one of those like non-combat lethal events in Cage 2, and you just see Sora standing there with his arms folded. Like, okay, bro, just go do something. However, with that being the case, enough clown on Kashimo. Note, Kashimo fans, I clown because I care. I would not put this much emphasis on a character if I didn't like them. Also, their name is Panda. I just really don't like Panda. But with that being the case, we do get to see everyone, but Hikari especially, starts freaking and geeking. Going, whoa! Yeah! Gojo-san! Simultaneous! It was simultaneous, that's my boy! And we see that Sukuna's domain destroyed Gojo's from the outside, and Gojo damaged Sukuna to the point where he couldn't maintain his domain. However, unfortunately, Sukuna just immediately heals the damage off. I don't know why Gojo's being so passive. Like it feels like he's standing around a lot. Like in moments where I believe he should be capitalizing, I feel like he's standing around, like just letting Sukuna heal up. When Sukuna was hit in the face with a red 2 chapters back, what did Gojo do? He stood around and let Sukuna alter the properties of his domain after he healed off the damage. Just now, after blasting a hole in Sukuna's chest, what does he do? Lets Sukuna stand there and grin at him as he heals with RCT. What does he do when Sukuna's missing an arm right at the beginning of their fight in chapter 224 or 225, I believe? He stands there and lets Sukuna hit. Like, Gojo, I know you're trying to save Megami, bro, but like, get a little bit more active. Like, dog, you do realize you're on like a limited time schedule here, man. You gotta get to work. You gotta stop standing around and letting this man heal in your face. Like, I'm trying to think of an equal scenario. It's really hard to think of it because like my brain is flashing between Pokemon and fighters, and there's no like easy way to sit back. Like, here's the thing. Imagine it's something like this. Have you ever just like stood there in like any fighting game ever and just let your opponent build meter? Like they're just building meter in your face, whether it be through like walking back and forth, or if you're in like Dragon Ball, you have like an actual meter build, or if you're in like Naruto, when you're playing Storm or whatever. Do you just sit there and let your opponent charge chakra after like hitting them with a crazy combo? No! You get in their face and make sure that they can't do anything. You keep putting pressure on. The fact that Gojo just keeps standing back and staring, like, I don't know, Gega's making this man look creepier, yet handsome every single time. Like, Gojo's literally just grinning and staring at Sukuna as he heals up. Bro, get active, especially considering the domain is down. Like, I get both of your techniques are down, so Gojo's likely healing a bit, but still, hopefully you can throw hands and heal at the same time. Like, do something, bucko. Don't just stand there and watch him heal. Like, come on now. At least Sukuna tried to get a little bit active once he noticed that, oh, you were able to survive in a level in Shrine. You were just able to fight him off. Don't be kind to him. Beat him up. beat him up. Like, put me in Gojo's scenario multiple times throughout this fight, especially in the opening. In the opener, when I saw that Sukuna had lost his arm, I'm opening domain right there. Because I literally think if Gojo had opened domain, hold on, let me double check. I know this is a complete tangent, but now I'm thinking about it. If Gojo had opened domain in chapter 223, when Sukuna was straight, missing an arm, Sukuna would have lost, right? Like, am I tripping? Am I tripping? If Gojo had opened domain in chapter 223, or right at the start of chapter 224, before Sukuna healed his arm back, then he would have won, because Sukuna wouldn't have been able to counter open domain. Like, maybe he had Hollow Wicker Basket, but can you cast Hollow Wicker Basket with one hand? I'm not sure. So I think Gojo could have literally won right there. But once again, he's just standing around and looking at Sukuna. If anything, the inaction is what's going to get Gojo here. And with that being the case, we see that Kusakabe asks, whoa, time. And he's wondering how long was their domain open, or specifically how long did Gojo's barrier last? Did anyone keep track of it? And we see that Miwa mocks him for not keeping track of it himself, and he blames them that it's a student's job. However, Mei, as astute and as patient as she is, and she literally does have the cameras here, so of course she would know the time period, 3 minutes and 9 seconds. If we're only talking about when the barrier miniaturized, precisely 3 minutes. So we had 3 minutes of interaction. They were fighting in there for 3 minutes. Gege, you couldn't show us that? Please, give me a flashback. Let me see it. I just want to see them fight in there. But especially consider, like, I really wonder how that works. Did Gojo literally shrink their mass? Like, did he actually, like, biologically alter them? I want to see that. Never will, but I would love to see that. However, with that being the case, we do get to see that Higuruma points out the obvious but the important fact that now that the domains have collapsed, neither of them can use curse techniques. And with that being the case, we see that Maki's like, okay, that's actually a good thing then. Gojo can make the first move since he can restore his burnt out curse technique with reverse curse technique. And we see that it's also pointed out that, well, Sukuna can use RCT too. And when Yuta, who once again is sweating, like, has he been drawn without a sweat mark for these past couple chapters? I'm going to do a quick glance. I feel like this man has been drawn with a sweat mark every single time we've seen him. Bro is nothing but stressed. Like, the only people who we've seen that haven't really been sweating, I'll give him credit, it's Kashimo. It's Kashimo and Ino, ironically enough. They aren't sweating. But with that being the case, like, bro, Yuta, calm down, bro. Don't worry. You said you got next, right? Yuta said you got next. Don't worry. I'm going to make a video on that. But Yuta, you said you got next. And we do get to see Yuta flat out admits, like, yeah, well, it's cool and all. But if you just go around saying that everyone with RCT can restore a burn technique, they can't. Like, I can't do it. And I probably have the most cursed energy out of anyone here. And I still can't do that mess. So something's going on here. And we do get to see that Angel's like, well, not only that, even if that were the case, he's seen it. Sukuna has seen it. And when Ino asks why that's an issue, Angel points out a pretty important fact. With Kenjaku's help, Sukuna was able to split his spirit into 20 cursed objects, the fingers. After seeing it just once, he learned how to turn himself into a cursed object. And Shoko realizes, oh, now that he's seen it, I'm sure Sukuna can also restore his burnt-out curse technique. And that's very, very interesting. And it's true when you think about it. And notably, it's even crazier when you really think about it, because what Kenjaku did to help Sukuna was split his body up into 20 separate effigies with 20 different pieces of his spirit. Now, whether it's harder or easier to split off all that energy into one person versus another, the crazy thing is that Sukuna didn't just repeat the process like he's going to do with restoring his curse technique with RCT. No, he changed the process. I'm not sure if it took a special ritual or something, but Sukuna's original body was mummified. It was like a whole special thing. It was done up all nice and proper. But for Sukuna, when he swapped over to Megami, bro just imbued a whole bunch of curse energy to his finger, ripped it off, and using the remaining dregs of his curse energy in Yuji's body, I guess, force-fed Megami, which is crazy to think about, and then transferred and took over the body. That's pretty impressive for someone who, once again, had only done it once. Sure, did he have 1,000 years to think on it? Probably. But still, that's super duper impressive. And we see that Gojo and Sukuna get active. And notably, they get active on a scale that I greatly appreciate. Once again, this is the battle between the strongest, but for these past couple chapters, as cool as it was to see domain on domain action, it did feel relatively small scale. One of the reasons why I love the Sendai free-for-all so much is because of the scale of the battle. Despite it being a battle between 3 special grade levels and not 2 god tiers like Gojo and Sukuna, it was still legitimately insane. You had Uro slamming Yuta through multiple structures with just a simple utilization of sky manipulation. You had Yuta getting thrown across buildings, Ryu erasing entire city blocks. Like, these guys were sparring at super duper high levels. And it feels like Gojo versus Sukuna, despite being on an entirely different power ceiling than those guys, it was feeling really, really small scale. But what Gege's finally doing now is letting the two wild out a little bit. And you see as Gojo goes for the low and Sukuna goes for the high, they get active. Gojo starts running, sprinting after Sukuna, and you see Sukuna starts to dip. Like, he's probably using RCT to heal up right now, and specifically to heal off not just the chest wound, but his curse technique, but that requires certain implications to occur. And with that being the case, you see Gojo chases, and I believe Gojo already healed off his curse technique, because I don't think it's Gojo just like stomping the areas, because you see as Sukuna's running, a massive break happens to his left and to his right, and he weaves in between them, and he leaps, but before he can, just as he hits the ground, you see Gojo land behind him, and seemingly enough, send a whole bunch of debris at Sukuna's face. However, instead of being concerned, Sukuna simply grins at it, and I'm guessing? I can't really tell what happens here. I still don't know. This is one of the rare instances where Gege's choreography has me a little bit confused. I'm assuming Sukuna either A, dodged the debris, or B, knocked it away. I'm really confused about the action lines around the chest. That's the only thing. I'm wondering about that. But with that being the case, Gojo lunges in and gets ready to get active. And he swings on Sukuna with a kick. But we see Sukuna blocks it and gets sent flying back. And he recovers. Notably, Sukuna is not using his curse technique at this point. When realistically, if Angel is to be believed, now that he's seen it happen before him, he should be able to do it himself. And naturally, Gojo, who is an extremely smart character, don't let his goofy, oofy, doofy demeanor fool you, he's an extremely smart man, he's like, wait, something has to be up. Why? This whole time, Sukuna's been stubbornly avoiding using any other curse technique other than the one granted to his domain. Even when the interior strength of the barrier was lowered after I flipped the internal and external conditions, he didn't try to destroy it from the inside. He chose the riskier option of trying to destroy it from the outside again. While we're canceling out each other's sure hit, from within the domain, Sukuna had no other choice but to use domain amplification in order to beat my limitless curse technique, neutral. That's a huge advantage for me. As I saw before within the domain, he can't use buildings to attack. In fact, until my domain was destroyed from the outside, I had the upper hand for 3 minutes. So, Gege, I hate to tell you, bro, but there's this wonderful storytelling rule, especially when you are working with a mostly visual medium such as manga. It's called show don't tell. While it's good to know that Gojo had the upper hand for 3 minutes, I would have loved to see it. If you could show me it. Because I'm just telling me it, like, I get it, it'd probably be hard to draw, but show me what happened. I would greatly appreciate it, Gege. Like please. I don't know. It would have been cool to see. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm assuming it's just more of the same. Like, they did some fisticuffs and Gojo hit him with something. But I would have liked to see that. Like, especially in comparison to Kusakabe just talking, just chatting, bro. Like, I would have preferred to see that. However, putting that aside, Gojo does bring up a pretty interesting point. This isn't like the Yorozu situation, or at least as far as Gojo knows, it isn't like the Yorozu situation. The reason Sukuna didn't whip out Shrine on Yorozu is because he specifically wanted to execute it with 10 Shadows so Megami would feel like he did it. That makes sense. The reason Sukuna didn't whip out 10 Shadows on Ryu is because he didn't need to. Ryu was light work. Bada bing, bada boom. The reason Sukuna didn't whip out, well, to be fair, he did whip out the fire, just a style on Jogo. And he did whip out the fire on Maharaga because he needed to whip out the fire on Maharaga. But there are reasons for pretty much every other banning of a technique done by Sukuna, but this one seems strange, especially considering there are multiple occasions where he could have used it to great advantage, such as dropping, I don't know, a building-sized Nue when Gojo's technique was shut down, or heck, just stacking techniques, because once again, we don't know if there's any independent factor. Like, we don't know if they have multiple techniques, can they stack them? We don't see Yuta do it. So, I don't know if he can. We don't see Kenny do it. I think Kenny is implied to do it. I think he does. Actually, I think he does use gravity plus curse spirit manipulation at the same time. So, I think Kenny can do it. And if Kenny can do it, Sukuna can definitely do it. So, why not? When you're in a domain, or even fresh out of a domain, when Gojo's technique is shut down, why not? I don't know. Just drop Nue on his head. Drop the Divine Dogs on his head. Literally, notably, the only real 10 shadows that Sukuna needs is Mahoraga. Like, everything else is nice, but he doesn't need it. And considering how totality works, if Gojo happens to slay all the other Shikigami, it'll just make Mahoraga even stronger. So why not do it? Why not just get a little bit active? That's why Gojo's so caught off guard. Even if it was just for fodder, just to stall, just to mess around, why go out of your way to get a technique that you aren't even using? Especially when considering how this battle's been going, it's been purely a physical battle up to this point. If Sukuna wasn't revealed to have been using 10 shadows, if that weren't the case, he literally would be doing better if he was in Itadori's body. And that's because Itadori has higher physical base stats than Yuji. No, I said higher physical base. Itadori has higher physical base stats than Yuji. How intelligent. No. Itadori has higher physical base stats than Megami, thusly Sukuna's curse energy reinforcement will be better on a stronger physical base. So, Gojo's legit confused. We see that with that being the case, Gojo theorizes that, wait. Okay, so since he has Megami's memory, he probably knows that I know about Mahoraga. Is he worried that I'm going to beat it in a single attack like he would have to? However, we do get to see that seemingly enough in the shadows, there's a Goshok or a Goshok or something like that. And suddenly, Gojo's nose starts to bleed. And we end the chapter with a tch. And we see that the chapter ends questioning, what do those eyes see through? And there's the chapter end. So, a couple things about the end of this chapter. One, Gojo Stock's in the toilet because of the end of this. Because it's implied, at least, that Mahoraga's adapted. To what? I actually don't know. Like, maybe it's the Limitless. Maybe it really is just the Limitless he's adapted to at this point. And maybe it's been in Sukuna's shadow this entire time. We were under the assumption that in order for Sukuna to adapt things for Mahoraga by tanking them, what he would have to do is keep the shadow on his head. Like, or not the shadow, but the wheel on top of his head, like he did against Yorozu. He pulled it out and was simply letting it rock out above him as he ate all of Yorozu's techniques, which allowed it to adapt properly to creation so Mahoraga could one-tap the perfect spear. That's how it was going. But it appears that Sukuna has been using 10 shadows this entire time. Or maybe not the entire time, but at least long enough that the Goshonk is able to happen. Even though it doesn't appear that Gojo really used anything other than physicals on Sukuna recently. This does raise a couple questions. One, how is the wheel Goshonking if Gojo, well, not Gojo, but Sukuna's technique was shut down? If you have multiple, we know for a fact, even if you have multiple techniques through Kenjaku, once you use a domain, all of your techniques are burnt out. It wasn't just a gravity technique that Kenjaku lost, and it wasn't just curse spirit manipulation. He lost both of them post-domain. But Sukuna was able to keep Mahoraga active through the domain. That's the thing. We don't know when Mahoraga's wheel was brought into play. It was brought into play at the start of the fight. I'm going to say something that's going to shock my fellow Gojo Glazers, but the Sukuna Sloppers may have this in the bag. If and only if Gojo's maximum isn't something super duper crazy and weird and off kilter, then if from the start of the battle, when Sukuna was hit with purple and managed to survive it one way or another, what do you think? Sukuna just face tanked it and then, or I guess arm tanked it, not face tanked it, and the rest of it dissipated? Or you think he tried to face tank it or arm tank it and then he dodged out of the way of the rest of it? He was hit with purple. He's been hit with red, literally directly in the face. Not sure about blue. I'm not sure if he's been hit with blue yet, but he probably has. That may have been the telekinesis or the debris manipulation. he has also been dealing with and adapting to the neutral Limitless 2. He literally has everything adapted. So if Maharaga comes out pre-adapted to everything, unless Gojo's maximum, once again, is some crazy like existence erasure technique where he can just wipe something from existence on some anti-limitless type beat or total limitless like type beat where he literally becomes omnipotent for half a second and just wipes out anything in front of him, then Maharaga coming out adapted would literally be unstoppable for Gojo. Like I don't think, like, maybe you could argue that if you don't, but even then, with the Sukuna amp, if it has the Sukuna amp, that's the weird thing. Like, notably, Maharaga is the only Shikigami we see that appears the exact same, regardless of who summoned it. Like, Megami summoned it, same size as the one that Sukuna summoned. So, I don't know, maybe not, but if Maharaga comes out pre-adapted, I think Gojo's in trouble. Does it mean that it's impossible for him to win, even if Maharaga drops? No. Because once again, he hasn't used it yet, but he can just teleport away. And I'm not even just talking about, teleport away to avoid the smoke with Sukuna and Maharaga. No, he could just grab Sukuna and leave. And then Sukuna has to despawn Maharaga and resummon it to wherever he is. And or Maharaga has to come and chase them to wherever Gojo randomly decides to go on the entire planet. Because I presume he has that kind of teleportation range. But even still, if it were just to teleport to another area of Japan that's over like 100 miles away. Like say he goes back to that district where he found Kenjaku and Sukuna for the first time in chapter 221. Then Maharaga kind of needs to chase or be resummoned. And Gojo could stall that way. However, I hate to say it, it seems like stalling isn't in Gojo's bag right now. Bro has one of the deepest bags ever, but I don't think stalling is one of them. And it's mainly because of the nosebleed that occurs right at the end of the chapter. Now, I've been hearing a whole bunch of different discussions on this, and I'm probably going to make my own video talking about it, because, I got to make my own video. I love the discussion, but I want to get into the discussion too. But there are three main ideas that I've heard for this. I'll go in order of what I think is most likely based on my understanding of the narrative at hand. I'm not saying anything that I don't think is valid is not valid. Trust me, I am a guy on the internet with a microphone who can barely read. I am not the authority out here, but I'm just going to take some guesses. The first one, a lot of people are associating the nosebleed with the wheel. A lot of people are assuming it goes ka-shunk, Gojo starts bleeding out his nose, thusly the wheel has the effect of causing Gojo to nosebleed. I don't think so. I really don't. I don't know. It feels too, once again, I know common sense won't prevail in the battle of the strongest, but at least from the two battles we've seen Maharaga, that's not how Maharaga works. Like, when it adapts for itself. Unless it's like an inverse variation of Maharaga where it de-adapts other people for Sukuna. If this is supposed to be Maharaga's wheel, which I assume it is, then it just doesn't work like that. I don't think that's how that would work out if Maharaga's wheel were to turn. I think something would happen for Maharaga, but not for his opponent. So I'm essentially gonna knock that off the chopping board. If it ends up being the case, fantastic for those who thought of that. That's a fantastic idea. Number two, a lot of people are talking that this could be playing into Sukuna's role as not just the king of curses, but the king of poisons. Like, sure, maybe Gojo was able to heal off all the different physical damage that Cleave and Dismantle, well, not Cleave, no, not Dismantle, but Cleave. Maybe Gojo's able to heal off all the different damages that, that young Cleave did to him, but who knows? Usually, when people get hit by Cleave, they don't survive long enough to see the after effects, and thusly, maybe Sukuna has some sort of corrosive poison effect built into his Cleaves to make sure that if something manages to survive it, it's still going to eventually, whether it be an hour, a day, a week, or in this case probably like a couple minutes, it'll end up getting them up out of here. And this one I can actually kind of see. Notably, I thought what happened in chapter 76 is that Gojo said he was going to figure out how to heal off poison and techniques and stuff like that, because we know it's a high level of RCT. Like Kashimo in the fight with Akari is like, this takes an insane level of RCT, because you don't just heal a physical wound. You need to be able to target, isolate, and then remove the poison. Like, that takes an insane level of processing power. And he didn't think Akari would do it with just infinite CE, but Akari, of course, could do it. And I thought Gojo had mentioned in chapter 76, 10 years ago, that he was like, oh, well, I'll just read the whole thing. What I've been doing manually, I can now do automatically. And it's not just the intensity of curse energy, but it's the mass, speed, shape. I use them all to distinguish the danger of the object. It would be nice to eventually distinguish poisonous objects as well, but that takes time. Right now, I can almost keep the Limitless always running at all times while using minimal resources. And with that being the case, I thought that was implying he was going to learn how to heal off of like poisonous objects being used against him, but no, it just says he's able to identify them. And considering he was hit by a bunch of them at the same time, it could make logical sense that, you know, he's just being poisoned. Bro just made a mistake and forgot that Sukuna was also the king of poisons, and the cleaves could just have a poisonous effect, and he just didn't know about it until it was too late. That could be possible. The only reason I'm a little bit against that is that it took too long to activate. Like, if Sukuna really is the king of poisons, shouldn't have Gojo already died? Like, this is not the first cleave or dismantle that he's taken, and why is it only affecting him now? Like, that just seems a little bit off to me, but this one I feel is a bit more plausible than Maharaga's wheel having a direct influence on, well, you know, the nosebleed. And then the final option, the one that I'm leaning more towards, because, you know, I'm biased, is the one I thought of after immediately seeing the Raws, and I still believe it now. Let me say it calmly. I think Gojo's just overworking himself. I know that sounds crazy to say because he has RCT running 24/7, right? So like he should be good. He should consistently be healed, especially his brain. But we got to remember, Gojo, despite having mastered, well, not mastered, but having the Limitless and being the strongest for over a decade at this point, he still wears a blindfold for the most part. He still gets overstimulated. His brain still works. Sure, it sounds like a nice idea. It sounds like a nice plan that Gojo would hypothetically have infinite stamina because he could just keep RCTing himself and burning so little curse energy through RCT that he's able to just keep running at maximum efficiency for forever. But he's only human after all. He's only human after all. Don't put the blame on him. And remember, this is the first time since Toji, and realistically the first time ever since he transcended and awakened, that he's actually had an intense fight. He's not built for this. like straight up, he's not built for a high intensity battle with an equal. And he's likely, the abuse of RCT hasn't been just for his brain, but it's been for his external bodily structure. In order to keep his body in one piece, he's been using RCT to the maximum. And all that utilization, his brain, the sixth eyes, feeding him all this info consistently for, 3 minutes inside that domain. This battle's probably been going on for at a bare minimum 10. He's probably just overworking himself, and the nosebleed is coming from overstimulation. Like, he's literally just he's overwhelmed in terms of the information he's taking. It's not poison. It's not Maharaga managing to get up in his mental guts, I suppose. No, it's literally just Gojo not being used to fighting at this level in this current state of his, and thusly he's running out of time, or he needs time to recover or overstimulate. And this could lead to one of two things. It could lead to what a lot of people are talking about now, Gojo losing. I can see that. I can definitely see that. This would technically be a fair way to win, too. I'm going to talk about the whole fraud argument for Sukuna. A lot of people are saying, and you may be shocked that I haven't said it, oh, Sukuna's a fraud, he's whipped out the 10 shadows. And yeah, at least in my opinion, this does low-key kind of imply that Gojo would have given Heianera Sukuna the work, or not the work, because this still is a super intense fight. Heianera Sukuna still did have the barrierless domain, presumably. So I'm going to assume that Heianera Sukuna would still probably put up a really good fight against Gojo, but I do think he would lose if Sukuna is leaning towards the 10 shadows, but he specifically went to go get the 10 shadows. I don't think it's fraudulent to use your abilities. Just like I didn't agree with the Sukuna sloppers when they were being like, oh, Gojo's a fraud because he's trying to use his physical body to escape Malevolent Shrine and or spam RCT to heal himself so he doesn't die. Like, yeah, of course he's going to do that. It's in his move kit. And just like the 10 shadows is part of Sukuna's moveset, yeah, him using it in a sneaky little crafty way, yeah, sure. Is it undirect? Is it seemingly wrong? Is it a bit unfair? But yeah, Sukuna's the king of curses. He doesn't care about the title. He doesn't care about being the strongest. He cares about winning. He cares about abandoning all else and burning it down to the ground. If he knows a way to win, he's going to find a way to win. So I understand why the fraud accusations are being thrown around, but I don't fully buy them. And with that being the case, I could definitely see Sukuna maybe eking out a dub here. Or what I think could be likely is that now everyone's going to have to sub in. They may need to buy him a minute, maybe 2, maybe 3. But I think this is where Kashimo finally gets to shine, because Sukuna may have forced Gojo to teleport out to, once again, recuperate, calm down, close his eyes for a bit, rest up, at least mentally, so his body can, I don't know, get itself back into shape. And thusly, we may finally get Kashimo versus Sukuna. We may finally get Itadori versus Sukuna. We may finally get the heavy hitters versus Sukuna. If only for a stalling tactic. Because I'm going to make a video talking about it. If Gojo loses, there's no one individually, even with my faith in Kashimo, there's no one individually who could beat Sukuna. Unless Kenjaku has something cooking in the background, Sukuna wins, everyone does. But those are my thoughts. And these are my thoughts about the entire chapter on a whole. In the live reaction, which you can check out by becoming a patron for as low as $1 a month, or becoming a member for as low as $3 a month, I did mention that I thought this chapter was like an 8 out of 10, but putting my weird show don't tell biases aside, I do like what this chapter does. So I'm going to bump it up to a 9. I'm not going to fully erase my biases. I'm not going to fully annihilate them, but I am going to shut them down just a little bit, because I do like what this chapter does and how it's got me thinking and considering. It's taking the battle in a way I wasn't expecting, and I like that. It's a very interesting way to introduce the 10 shadows and introduce Gojo's fatigue, or introduce permanent damage to Gojo, or whatever this is. So it's a very W chapter. However, that's what I think. Please, you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure in case you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, so for as low as $1 a month, get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.